Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are joining us. And welcome one and all to our second English teissTalk of the month. Last week we had the special German language one. For obvious reasons, I was not involved in that one. Yes, welcome everybody. We've got a great show for you today. Today we're talking about, my favorite topic, AI, of course, from manual triage to machine speed investigations, the rise of the agentic SOC. Before that, a couple of notices. First off, if you are joining us from LinkedIn Live, welcome. Welcome to the Cool Club. Welcome to where the cool kids hang out. Uh, you're very welcome to carry on listening and watching us from LinkedIn Live. However, you will not be able to ask a question. It's on something like a 2 minute delay, something like that. You will not be able to ask us a question, and that's important. Why is it important, Tom? I hear you ask. Well, if you do wish to ask a question, you will need to go to teissTalkk.com/teissTalk. Log in there and join us through the platform there, and you will find a little chat button there where you can ask a question of the panel. And most importantly, the funniest, the most interesting, the one that makes us squirm the most, the one that makes us think the most, or even just ones randomly selected by me, will be the winner of a teissTalk mug. I understand from last time that a few people haven't received theirs yet. If you are one of those, then please do get in touch. We will expedite them to you straight away. Very collectible items. Not even most panelists get a teissTalk mug, so you need to get one while you can. Talking of panelists, let me now please bring onto the stage Ken, Mike, and Edward. Hello, Ken.
Hey Tom, how you doing?
Very good. Thank you for joining us. Hello, Mike.
Hey Tom.
And welcome back, Mike. Always good to have you here. And Edward, a very special welcome to you.
Thank you, Tom.
And Edward is one of our sponsors for today, DropZone.ai. It's because of them that one, we can do a show, and two, that you can sit idly and eat your biscuits and drink your tea whilst you pretend to do some learning here with us. So you can tell your boss that it's all entirely valid. But without further ado, let me bring together us onto our news item. And this is from our friends of the show at Forbes. And the headline reads Anthropic disabled Fable 5 and Mythos 5 after a US export control order. Here's what happened. Well, just looking at the headline, this either tells me that it's the US administration going a bit wonky again sometimes, as has happened a few times, or actually, we're now looking at these tools and seeing them effectively as weapon grade. Is it one, either, or a bit of both?
I think it's a combination of the both, to be fair. I think the capabilities of these LLMs is getting more advanced. I think the difference between Opus, which everyone can use and is free to use, and Mystios might be a little bit of marketing fluff potentially. Fable seemed okay. It was very, very defanged. You couldn't anything that even remotely skirted into, change the permissions of this directory so it's more secure. I can't answer security questions. You don't get the full capability. It was, on par with Opus. But I do think there's a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction and a slightly bigger political sphere to the whole Mystios Fable thing that isn't necessarily the weapons grade stuff.
Yeah.
It's more at play.
I mean, is it good that we're doing this in advance, even though it may not be as dangerous as it sounds? Because very often regulation is still tying up its shoes whilst private companies are halfway around the world and selling their products to unknown, unwitting customers. So, is this potentially a good thing anyway?
From my perspective, like if you purely look at it from the technical side, I think Anthropic themselves in their blog mentioned how you can achieve practically most of the similar vulnerability discoveries with other models, like other latest generation models like GPT 5.5 and the likes of that. So on that front, you could argue the the export control is not going to be very effective because similar capable models are already out there.
Yeah.
And I think everybody will also agree it's just a matter of time that the public open source models um, will start to catch up in the matter of months, at most, like 2 quarters. So I think we are on a trajectory as this kind of capability is going to more or less get commoditized, regardless, what the government wants or doesn't want to happen.
And I've got to be careful when I say this as well, but Anthropic is not the White House's favorite AI company at the moment because they refuse to sell the model for military purposes, etc., etc. So, is this more a political statement against Anthropic than actually we're trying to restrict weapons grade AI?
Yeah, that's a good question. I personally don't have, any special insights into exactly what's going on. I think at this stage, my educated guess from the outside, far, far away, is it's probably both, right? As with any
Yeah,
large organizations, there's, feelings, emotions, egos at play. But at the same time, I think part of this, in my mind, has to do with Anthropic's own successful dual marketing. Anthropic spent a lot of time, a lot of energy. They hyped up how scary this model is, right? And I think they did a fabulous job scaring a lot of people because, like, the whole missiles and the weapon grade large language models became ubiquitous and well known outside of the typical cyber tech community, right?
yeah.
But at the same time, now they are kind of making this whole thing available to the entire public. So I felt like right now there is a little bit, you can say, backwash or kind of from their doom marketing that was to some extent maybe too successful.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think the popular opinion, or maybe not popular, the considered opinion was, I mean, Mythos made a splash, and it made a splash. Even it was on the front pages of the business news, not even just the
Mhm.
technology news. And the number of people who are coming to, folks, well, like everybody on this call, and if we've got any kind of customers saying, "What is this going to do? How is this going to affect us?" But it was still not clear whether it was actually the face of the future and the sky will now be falling with vulnerabilities or an extremely good marketing campaign. And frankly, as you say, it's probably in the middle somewhere. But nonetheless, directionally, that's where we're headed. Open, 5.5, for instance. Well, when that's at 8.5 or 9 or 10 or whatever, we're going to be talking in very, very different terms when it comes to the kind of vulnerabilities or the kind of activities that can be carried out by these models.
I think that's a really interesting point as well, though, because the frontier models, especially, it's so competitive, and obviously there's so much money. Every
Mm,
3 to 6 months, they're iterating with this new feature, this new trained model. It's so much more powerful. And we're worried about one now, which is apparently weapons grade. You've also got to consider, well, in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months' time, how much more advanced are these weapon grades ones? And it's a bit of a knee-jerk reaction because it's more powerful than allegedly any of its competitors, but it's just going to keep rolling. So it's going to be one of these situations where, okay, well, this is fine for now. We're going to adapt to the new world with Mistos. But then in 6 months' time, when it's Mistos V.2, and
yeah.
the whole world has to sort of stop again and we have to redo everything, it's just going to keep iterating. So I think I think there's a lot of marketing behind it, but I do think it is just going to keep expanding its capabilities. So it's obviously one to watch.
And fundamentally, as you say, you mentioned it, the amount of money that's being poured into these, they have to be a success. Otherwise these companies will collapse under their own weight and the technology will be bought up by the last company standing, effectively. So it's that there is that strong element of marketing. But again, to my earlier point about let's get the regulation in now. Let's get, I mean, this is hardly the most stringent of regulations, short of you're not allowed to buy this outside of the US. But But nonetheless, it's maybe it's the right step. Maybe it's the direction we need to go with these kinds of frontier models.
I think with the Fable example as well, I think it was jailbroken, which was part of the reason it was pulled. So I
Right.
think the frontier model companies also have to make sure that they're able to control the models that they're putting out to the public. Again, they did try with Fable to put safeguards on it, and they really did try to contain it to most things. But again, someone was able to jailbreak it. So there's
Yeah.
also a responsibility on them that if they are going to release these models with certain capabilities, it doesn't necessarily have to be this scary a weapons grade model. Even, Opus 7.9 is probably going to be on par, and they're going to happily just release that and let you use it. So I think it's all about how they train it and how they write the instructions into each model to be able to differentiate between no, we should not be doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. And with Mythos,
Yeah, but I think
so it's go on, Edward.
yeah, I think another component we need to keep in mind is there's also like geopolitics at play, right? At the end of the day, Anthropic, OpenAI, and Gemini or Google are not only three companies on the planet who are building these models. I think these are obviously the big three closed source commercial model providers. But um, in my mind, there will be other model providers who wouldn't care as much about, export controls and limiting cyber capabilities and all of that. So even if all the commercial model providers are being good citizens of of the world, I do anticipate this capability will be made available through open source models. I
Yeah.
think there are even, you know, uh, post-trained variations of the open source models that have even stronger cyber capabilities that attackers have been using um, uh, um, and circulating in different forums.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, let's I consider ourselves warmed up now. Let's move on to the panel proper when we talk about, from manual triage to machine speed investigations, the rise of the agentic SOC. I mean, it's AI again. It's AI writ large, and it's AI that's been applied to possibly an area that, well, we've all complained about at some point in the past, right? Because we've all complained that actually the problems with the SOC is not that we can't see everything, it's the fact that we can't actually look at everything. Even going back, what is it, a decade now with the TJ Maxx breach that happened when malware was inserted onto the point of sale systems, that was logged. That they in post-incident analysis, they found the actual point in time that happened, and it was clearly marked and clearly labeled. But of course, the humans couldn't deal with it. This seems to me to be the perfect use of AI, but obviously, given that all we've done for the last 3 years, it seems, is talk about AI, we're now a little concerned about it. And we're now a little, concerned about the impact it's going to have on our SOC and on our analysts and on our people. So how is this actually going to be changing our detection engineering now when it comes to the building of a SOC?
So for the detection engineering part for this, I think it makes detection engineering more important than ever. To be completely honest with you, the more we pump into any sort of tool, right? The old adage, garbage in, garbage out still applies here. And
Yeah,
you can bring everything you want in. It's going to cost more money, right? So any of these analysts that are coming through, there's a charge to them, right? By case, by event, whatever it happens to be. So you pump in a whole bunch of garbage to it, you're spending a whole lot of money. I forget the company that just paid or had a bill for $500 million in 1 month, I believe it was, for AI usage. I don't think anyone wants to see that happen inside of their organization. So now you need detection engineering more than ever. You need somebody to validate the rules that are coming through. AI is making them faster, right? But that doesn't mean that they're good. That just means that it's a quicker turnaround from, initial research to a possible detection, but there still needs to be some validation that gets put forth before it goes into production, before you blow up a system. Even the ones that you have, they need to be tuned so that your AI systems aren't going through so much garbage anymore. If you can identify that garbage and tune it out, right? So personal opinion on this makes detection engineering and threat hunting, for that matter, more important than ever. And I think those two go together. You hunt something and you turn it into a detection, whether that's one team or combination of the two. But I think that now, today, is more important than it was before.
So you think that actually it's going to reduce that alert overload potentially because it will tell us actually we don't need these signals. These signals are not providing us anything.
So I think the AI can help identify that these signals aren't providing anything, but I still think that there needs to be human validation behind that because there are nuances to some of this stuff, right? I'll put my insider threat hat on for a second. Our traditional security tools, they don't do a great job at insider threat detection. There's a lot of correlation there, right? We need to have this happen, then this happen. So some of these small events are still important if they're chained to something else.
Right.
So if you let AI just remove it because it didn't see any value in it, you're just increasing your blind spots. And I think if we get too comfortable with the AI usage, we're we're increasing our blind spots anyway. So again, there needs to be some validation done, which is why I think detection engineering is like that's where things are going right now.
Hmm.
And just to bring up on the cost as well, I think we're all talking about how AI is going to revolutionize the industry, but very few people talk about how much it's going to cost to revolutionize the industry. You're probably never going to meet a SOC and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, we've got more than enough staff. We're fully staffed. We can handle all the alerts." It's never going to happen. And I think looking at certain sort of models and going, "Okay, well, we'll just replace our analysts with this agentic model." Well, if you're in California and you've got a team, it's probably going to cost you a lot more than it is in the UK. So you get to this point where it's actually, is there a reward to, we're going to be spending a huge amount more money on this agentic churn, and we're still going to need someone to understand the events. You can't just have the agent go off and make all the decisions without any controls in place. So there's always going to be a human in the loop, or you'd hope there's always going to be a human in the loop. But you're also going to end up burning tens of thousands of dollars a month, and you might find nuanced data that takes a large language model to abstract and pull together and piece together. But you're also then going to be spending a huge amount more money. And I think that's the risk with this. Everything has to drive to AI is going to be a huge cost difference. And for, large enterprises, it's not as much of an issue. But when you get into this market of okay, we've got smaller, medium enterprises that still need to do security. They can't do it on that scale. The threat's still, obviously, their attack profile's a little bit different, but they're still a target, they're still a threat. They're not going to be able to keep up and compete, which leaves them at a disadvantage. And then we move into if once we get dumbed down and humans just become puppet masters to LMs, we're not going to have that same institutional knowledge and people are going to become softer. Your skills will deteriorate because you will become reliant on the machine. You might be the one pushing the button to go, yes, do this, but you're also going to be, you're not going to be thinking about attack chains as much. You're not going to be trying to, as you say, correlate logs and looking at the detection. You're going to go, this is what the robot spat out. I'm just going to say yes or no. And I think there's an industry shift here that we need to kind of balance out as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I think
to that point, Mike. Sorry, go ahead, Edward.
yeah, I just want to kind of maybe chime in on kind of changing the roles, right? Like what is the role of a human security engineer or security analyst pre and post AI agents? And I think a lot of that is actually very similar to we are to how the role of software developers have changed in the last 2 or 3 years, right? I think I've seen a talk, one of the lead distinguished engineers at Anthropic mentioned, like he wakes up every day and have, 20 coding sessions running in parallel, and he actually didn't write any code anymore. However, most of his time is kind of doing design reviews and kind of applying his taste of what good looks like, what good code looks like, what good architecture look like, what good solution strategy looks like. And I do think that will also apply in the cyber domain. This is where like AI agents can look at, you know, uh, 20 queries in parallel, but at the end of the day, before, for example, making the decision to maybe containing or performing some disruptive changes in the environment, um, it, it still requires the human operators to take another look, not only because generally human operators have more context about the environment than most AI agents, but also applies the human judgment. So
Yeah.
this is where, from my perspective, when we meet customers and prospects and security teams, and they ask us, "Hey, with your AI agents, am I going to do after we adopt it?" I think a lot. We always tell them, "Hey, the goal is to really force the AI agents to offload the mundane and repetitive work. Nobody enjoys writing SPL queries over and over and over again, and nobody enjoys scrolling through a long table of 1,000 rows from a same response. However, there's still like things like detection engineering, things like figuring out where the security team needs to expand in terms of visibility. And also like being kind of the SOC lead that reviews the recommendations and the key investigations performed by AI agents will be like a key responsibility. We envision the human operators will be up leveled to kind of operate more like a SOC lead or SOC managers or special forces, looking at like you know very high impact, high consequential projects, while the AI agents are kind of more or less operating as foot soldiers, running
Mm.
queries, digging, performing hours of data digging and all of that.
There's a
I
lot
think
to,
there's
to
still, oh,
unpick there.
sorry,
Sorry.
John.
No, I was going to say there's a lot to unpick there. But Ken, what were you going to say?
Yeah, so the like one of the major concerns just with the idea of there's going to be a more skilled analyst that's overseeing AI, which I agree with. But what happens when that person leaves and there's not another higher skill? There's now we don't have lower level folks that we're training up to become those leads, those managers, and in the
Who have those
function. To your
skills to
point,
monitor?
right, because Edward, to your point with the developer that you knew, he knows what good code looks like because he's been doing it for years. Well, the next guy is not going to, right? The next person, whoever it happens to be, they may not have the same skills. So good code to them might be whatever AI turned out to them. And then what?
And also
Yeah.
like, removing the foundation. I mean, you join a SOC, tier one, junior, whatever structure you want. You're churning alerts, you're going through logs, you're learning and foundationally building on that. And as you move up through the ranks, you obviously expand and your knowledge increases. But I think if you take someone who, okay, they've bypassed all of that lower level alert churn and they're just dealing with the fun and exciting events, you do have a gap in knowledge because you do need that foundational stuff. If all you're looking at is like, nation state level malware, you're going to get caught out on some of the basics. And that's to say, every industry or every business you're ever going to work in is also going to have these same tools that are going to support you. So you could end up as like a principal security analyst and be really good when the AI gives you all these like nice bundled packages. But then without the tool, you'd kind of be at a loss. And I think
Yeah.
the worry there with the industry of losing that skill.
And if we lose the junior SOC analyst as well, how is the SOC team lead going to get his cup of tea every morning when comes in the office? I mean, AI is good, but it's not that good, right? But
Not
but
yet.
but not yet. Oh, not yet. Oh, that's ominous. Um, no, but joking aside, that principle is true in the sense that you have to earn your stripes almost. You have to earn and learn how to do the basics in order to become that senior, SOC team lead. And that's potentially in our sort of, dare I say, short-sighted rush to fix the problem we have right now. And we have a problem. There's no question about it. The attackers are attacking at machine speed, and we're not responding at machine speed yet. Not fully, not across the board. So we're going to potentially throw the baby out with the bathwater here if we're not careful.
And I think the difference with the attackers as well, using that, obviously attackers can leverage AI, but ultimately it doesn't change anything. Attackers have only ever had to be right once.
Yeah,
It obviously they can do it at more scale, more speed, and lesser skilled adversaries can now perform at a higher level, which is obviously a threat. But it's always been the same case where they only have to try something once and get in. Whereas when you're reacting to these events and you're having to learn it, a lot of that comes down to you could see three or four different events that aren't that correlated, or your tooling might not put them together. But you can see a chain as a human and go, oh, actually, and again, an LLM could do this, but you need to have that experience to go, actually, these three things lined up together aren't anything on their own, but they worry me, and I'm going to deep dive this. And again, machine speed can do this, but you also need people who can look at it and go, this is what we need, and this is why we need to dig into it. And as the people get rusty, if you've not done something for a few months, you're going to be, if you have to write a query and you haven't done it for a few weeks, you're rusty, the syntax,
Yeah.
we're going to lose. What people, if there's not going to be rust to gain. Everyone's just not going to know it because the LLMs are just going to churn it and provide it.
Mm.
And to
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
from our
like with the
perspective,
Sorry, go on, Ken. You
no,
jumped in first.
I was gonna say to Mike's point there with the alerts coming through, right, like attackers only have to be right once. Probably a controversial stance on this, but if we know, and attackers are going to know this too, that there's a cost associated with the use of AI. If I flood your system and use up all of your credits,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
what happens next, right?
Yeah.
Now I can just fly through the radar because nothing's stopping me. So
Yeah. Yeah. Except Dave in the sock at 2 a.m. who's having a bit of a sugar crash, right?
yeah, and then I just feel really bad for Dave because
Exactly.
he's got hell in front of him.
Precisely. Precisely. Edward.
yeah, I think you guys brought up a lot of good points, especially around kind of what happens to the future talent pipeline. I do think this is kind of a domain where a lot of other industries have run into. I vaguely remember, when compilers first came out, a lot of developers have worried about, hey, if nobody knows assembly language anymore, everybody is just writing, C code,
Yeah.
then how do we ensure our programs are actually working correctly? I think nowadays in college computer science programs, C code and assembly is, maybe they will touch it in one of the courses, but most of the developers now they are programming higher level languages like JavaScript
Yeah.
or Python. So I do think like in terms of absolutely knowing the basics is still very important. But like a couple of things we have seen first and foremost, in a lot of cases, having kind of this AI agents that is looking at investigations can materially help the up leveling of the human analysts because now a lot of times you get kind of a coach or mentor to cross-reference with, and you can look at the investigation yourself and then compare it against, the results of an AI agent, and then start um, looking at like diffing them and see, okay, what are some of the things I looked at and the AI didn't, which is good, but also what are some of the things that the AI looked into and I missed. So that's one component we have heard, feedback from junior analysts from our customers that they have liked how having this, you can say, reference manual to some extent. But beyond that, obviously, you don't want humans to be like the future generations to be solely reliant on AI as their own reference manual. So some of our customers have requested, and we have implemented this mode where the system will on purpose essentially ignore and kind of not thoroughly investigate a small percentage of alerts. And it's a little bit like
Oh,
TSA or these, airport security checks. If you're reading to these people actually have a lot of these, you can say, secret travelers. So like people will on purpose, management will on purpose sneak in, knives and
yeah.
cigarettes or, lighters in the luggage through the X-ray to make sure, the security personnel at the airport are actually paying attention. So I do see like features like, okay, AI agents, uh, you should on purpose maybe ignore or not investigate and just escalate 1% of the alerts to keep the, you can say, keep the human practitioners still sharp, right?
It's
Because when you, yeah, go
Go
ahead.
on. Go on. No, go on. It's the way what?
Yeah, I felt like when a little bit like airport security control, where when you know, okay, there will be this secret traveler and the team will continuously be, tested, not 100% shielded after an AI. I do think that also helps to as kind of a continuous, you can say, retraining or recertification process to ensure that the existing human practitioners are not sleeping at the wheel and not, completely dozing off.
That's really it reminds me of the Netflix Chaos Monkey that just goes
Hmm.
around randomly switching things off in the same sense. I'm randomly not going to investigate it. I'll flag it, and push it to a human operator instead. And that's but that it sounds great on paper. My concern would if I was running a SOC would be what if it sent the wrong one to the human? What if it sent the one that was really bad that needed to be dealt with at machine speed, not at the speed of a sugar crash?
And I think as well on that
Yeah,
point,
that's a great question.
sorry, I sound quite skeptical and I'm not. I love AI. I think LLMs are super powerful. And I
Yeah,
think using them to upskill your team is also a huge, huge advantage. Again, maybe not in a we've refined everything and we're churning it to give you what we want, but if you've got a junior analyst, instead of having to hand a ticket over to a senior, they can interact with an LLM and they get that immediate upskill and that immediate ability to
yeah.
deal with a more advanced. And I think that's great because even if it comes down to writing a query, doing some threat hunting, they have that ability to. And again, they could have gone off and spent 3 hours researching and Googling and building it themselves. It's that immediate back and forth, and they really do. I think it's quite enriching. So I do think AI is always going to, well, it's not going anywhere anytime soon, but I think the place in the SOC maybe not the machine speed processing, but I think definitely leveraging it to upskill is a huge benefit. And even then, that could be, in future editions when the agents are churning it out, you have your buddy bot that you can sit and chat to, and it'll help you understand what you're dealing with at machine speed, so we don't lose
Mm.
that gap.
We seem to be at an inflection point where we can either let AI do everything, or we can use AI to help us get better at what we do. And I'm
I
not
think the
sure that we're necessarily choosing the right path at the moment. Sorry, Ken.
No, if you let it do everything, you lose the critical thinking, the out of box thinking that
Yeah,
humans come with.
yeah,
And as, like what we've been talking about the entire time is like the lack of skills that some of the junior analysts have. Mike, I agree. Using AI to upskill is fantastic. The one thing that AI will never teach you is that critical thinking aspect, though. And I think it's rare enough as it is today to find really good analysts that have this critical thinking, this out of box thinking. I've interviewed very many analysts that if they don't have a script in front of them, they don't have a playbook, they don't know what to do next, right? Those aren't the ones that I kind of need. The ones I need are the ones that say, oh crap, four doesn't come after five, right? Like I could do four at seven or whatever it is. And
yeah,
this doesn't follow exactly because I know that I can just go look over here and I can solve this entire case right now. Or I could write a query and I already know the answer for this. I don't have to go through 12 steps. I already know what the end looks like. And if the end wasn't there, I can kind of backtrack to
yeah,
see from there. Those are the folks that you need leading different positions, right? Because while they can't necessarily teach critical thinking skills, they can empower their people to try and use it and kind of get to that level. But if we provide every analyst with an AI like response, and there's a playbook sitting in front of them, they're not. You put them in a spot that doesn't have it, right? Like say they go to a small, medium-sized business, like you were saying before, Mike. AI is not there. They're not gonna be useful in that position. And without that type of mentality, without that critical thinking, it's like I said, it's rare enough as it is. We don't need to make it worse.
yeah,
I think that's the critical thinking piece is a really interesting part. So I know with my team every so often, I'll randomly pick an incident and just get them to really drill into it as obscurely as I can. And we'll talk it out in a team chat, and it's just like, what's this? What's this? And it's just going through that process of getting them to really think about each one. And I think, again, alert fatigue is a huge issue, and you can get really dumbed down to, oh, well, I've seen that 6 or 7 times today. I know it's a false positive, or I know we're building something new. But I do think, and again, not everyone every day in a SOC isn't fancy advanced threats. 99% of the time, someone's forgot their password or they've clicked on an email
yeah.
that maybe shouldn't. it's really, really difficult to even now maintain that. Oh, I need to stay alert. I need to understand why this is happening, not what I'm reading. And I think that's the alert. Well, we've got alert fatigue now, and a lot of people, our tools at the moment all have LMs, ML, and AI in it, and you get very nice packaged things. But why? Why am I getting this is a malicious binary? What has it done to tell me it's malicious? And if you just take, okay, it was, the EDR has told me this is bad. Well, why? What processes is it invoked? What? And we need to keep maintaining that. And I think LLMs, again, really good for, can you explain this to me? Oh, I now understand why it's triggered this way. But I do think we do dumb things down and for a reason. It's obviously when you're dealing with hundreds of alerts a day, you do need to have it somewhat convenient.
Mm.
But people become too reliant on tools anyway. Now we just abstract that even further.
And I think that segues nicely into into the final point here about trust, transparency, data handling, etc. Understanding why the decisions are making. And uh, Ken, I may disagree slightly with you when you said that an AI can't teach critical thinking. It could certainly help lay the foundations for it if it was able to, you know, openly talk or openly demonstrate how certain events were strung together to to culminate in a certain outcome, etc. If we can use the AI to also educate our human operators as well.
Yeah, I mean, when I say critical thinking can't be taught, it's more just like one of those things that I don't know how better to say it, but like you either have been able to do it since you were young,
Well,
or
okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
like you haven't been able to do it since you were young, right? Like maybe you didn't need to. But some of these folks, like you want to talk about entry level stock analysts, like they sometimes with the mass amounts of stuff that they get in, it is it's either they learned it before or they're going to learn it today.
Or even
Because
intuition, right? Sometimes some
right.
of the best, you don't know why they're so good. They're just good.
Yeah, exactly. And like I can point this out and say that's bad, and somebody be like, "Why?" I'm like, "I can't really explain it to you, but I know that that's bad. Let's dig in a little bit
Yeah,
deeper, right? Then we'll figure it out together."
yeah, exactly.
But like
Yeah.
that's the part of the critical thinking that I'm more or less talking about is you've either been doing it for a long time or you haven't. And those that have gone 20, 30 years without much critical thinking, it's gonna be, I know old dogs can learn new tricks, but it's not easy.
They're going to become the equivalent of, I don't know, pencil pushers or whatever in the sock world. They're not going to be the high performers. They're not going to be the sock leads, the ones that are going to bring real experience and intuition. They're just going to go through the motions.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think we have a lot of that in the stock as it is today,
Yeah.
is kind of going through the motions, right? Like, hey, I run this script. And Mike, to your point, when you're talking, what the concept that you brought up was like understanding how a tool works, not what it does, but how it works. Right. And so if your job is to run the script, and I've asked this on interviews before because somebody was like, oh, I run the script and I get my answers. And I was like, well, what does the script do? Well, I don't know. I just run the script. And I was like,
It gives me the answers.
fantastic.
Didn't you just hear me?
Yeah. Yeah. But they
Yeah.
don't know what it does and they don't know why. And like from a curiosity perspective, and maybe that's part of the critical thinking too, is the curiosity. Like we're lacking it to some degree. Why would you not want to know what that script does? I'd want to know.
Yeah.
Um,
But I think
so
this leans into a different problem, which we're not here to talk about, but the different problem of we use the SOC as the entry point for all of our security people now. You have to
mhm,
go through the SOC in order to even join a security team. And so therefore we've dumbed it down ourselves to a certain extent. As security leaders, we've said, well, you've got to put your time in the SOC before we can even consider you for this GRC role or this pen test role or this whatever. And so therefore we just opened up our doors to people going through the motions to get up the ladder.
I think with the entry level stock as well, I think it does offer a good foundation. It really does. I don't necessarily think it would be the only entryway in because if some people like GRC, like if you're that way inclined and you like compliance, then more
I'm
power to
guessing
you.
you don't there, Mike. I'm guessing
Yeah,
GRC is not your thing.
yeah. But there's some people who really like policies and writing it in. Great. And I think that you do need that curiosity. And I think SOC is there's a reason people burn through so many SOC analysts. It's because it's at times it's a thankless task, and I think
Mm,
that's why it's seen as a little bit of an entry level because you come in. And after 6 months of churning alerts, depending on how your SOC's structured, you want to be a security engineer and you want to sit and do something slightly more interesting. And I think that's why you see a lot of people
Make it better.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's where when you're only churning alerts 12 hours a day, it will become quite monotonous. So having that, if you're ever in an incident, it's 2 o'clock in the morning and the one box that's impacted is the one that doesn't have your tooling on it for whatever reason, you need someone who can go, okay, get me the logs, I'll go through them, get me a digital disk image, and being able to review it without
Yeah.
that sort of, I mean, don't get me wrong, the tools are great, they make it easy, but there's always going to be a situation where you're going to need to have like go old school and actually do some analysis yourself, and that's where you need that cognitive ability.
Yeah. Give me the floppy disks. I'll put the agent on myself. That sort of thing. Anyway, we've come to time, gentlemen. So thank you very much. I'm going to go around each of you. I'm going to give you, we're pretty much on time. I'm going to give you like 30 seconds each. And the perennial question, or the weekly question, whichever way you look at it, that we ask, we can't try and keep things practical. What's the one thing our audience should do when they get to their desks tomorrow, when they're looking at their SOC or looking at their use of AI or agentic AI within the SOC, or even considering their use of? What's the one thing they should look at? And Ken, I'm going to start with you.
I think trying to answer the question of why. Why are we doing this? Why are we bringing AI in? Like, what is the purpose there, right? We're bringing in for a reason. So understanding the why, if you know what you're aiming for, you can kind of build backwards and say if this makes sense or not. If you're just saying, hey, throw it in there because the company likes AI, well, you're not solving for anything. So
Right.
figure out the what you're solving for, the why, and work backwards from there.
Nice. Excellent. Mike.
Yeah, I'd say understand what you want the AI to do because it's a very broad term. Do you want a fully agentic sim where you just have to click a button in Teams every so often to approve things, or do you want to use it as a tool to empower the people who are already doing the job to do it slightly more efficiently or with better ease? I'd say really assess what you want to get out of the AI versus this is agentic. Let's just do AI things.
Let's do agentic.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Very good. And final words from our sponsor, Edward.
Yeah, I think similar to Mike and Ken, but maybe a little bit more prescriptive. So the way we think about AI is it's kind of like software-based staff augmentation. So one of the ways to figure out what to use AI for is to ask yourselves the question, hey, if we have, five more people on the team, what are some of the activities we want those five people to spend their time on? Do we want them to, deploy more network sensors? Do we want them to write more detections? Do we want them to do more threat modeling? Or do we want them to look at the medium and the low information alerts that the team never had time to dig into? I felt like that would be a good way to figure out, like, run through this mental exercise. What would you do if you have five more people on your team? And then start working backwards. Okay, now you have envisioned what more analytical capacity could do for the organization. Then go back and start looking at, okay, different AI agents that might give you those analytical capacity.
Brilliant. And I think what's really interesting is we've just had three very different flavors of the same answer to the question, which I think is really useful because it really does come down to it. Why are we doing this? What are we doing? What are we hoping to get out of it? And what improvements can we make? Not just let's do it, which I think has been it feels like up till now, AI has just been a let's do it thing. So now we need to start asking those critical questions. Excellent. Thank you very much. To our audience, it's not that it's not that I'm upset. It's more that I'm disappointed that we didn't get any questions at all and I couldn't award a mug. So I'm going to keep this one instead. But hopefully next time, do join us and maybe you can ask a question then and get a mug or not. I don't. It saves me the postage, frankly. But next time is next Thursday, the 25th of June. It's the last one of June. It's about, would you believe, AI again, but how AI is forcing a redesign of security itself. So, some pretty weighty stuff. We've got some great panelists as always. It just now behooves me to say thank you very much to Ken. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Tom. Appreciate it.
And Mike, thank you.
Cheers, Tom.
And to our lovely sponsors, Edward, thank you.
Excited to be here.
And to our audience at home, stay secure, my friends.